Hey guys, Savage Joy here with Real Progressives. I am continuing my 2 weeks of California candidates. Tonight is Mr. Lewis Elbinger. He is in California running as a Green in District 1. He was actually recommended by Josh Jones, who is the Green gubernatorial candidate in California. So thank you so much for joining us tonight, Lewis. I appreciate it.
Here, Joy. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Josh was telling me, what an interesting character you are, and as I was as I was reading your website and your page, I can see that.
Yeah. I've been blessed to have a really good life in terms of a lot of travel, a lot of experiences, and it's kind of a rather unusual for any candidate, but especially for the Green Party.
Yeah. Where have you traveled that has really influenced you?
Well, I've been around the world a lot. I hitchhiked from Scotland to India when I was 21 years old. I studied Chinese in Hong Kong and dropped out of school and went to Vietnam as a newspaper reporter in December of 1967. I went to Laos and India and worked my way back on a ship. And I finished school, and that's when I hitchhiked from Scotland to India. And I thought I'd stay in India forever, but I didn't. I came back to America and met my wife, got married, had a child, and eventually I joined the Foreign Service. First of all, I worked in computers. I worked at Yale New Haven Hospital in Connecticut. And then I got into the Foreign Service. And from the Foreign Service, I had 16 different assignments in 9 different countries. So there's a lot of travel, a lot of experiences. I managed embassies and consulates around the world. I ended up as the deputy political advisor to General Petraeus in Central Command and the acting political advisor to General Mattis, who is now our Secretary of Defense.
Oh, wow. Okay. Because I was going to ask you to specify, because I did see that you're a retired diplomatic officer. So I was going to ask you to kind of expand on that. What are some of the types of things that you would deal with in that job?
Well, the State Department has what they used to have 4 cones. Now there's 5 cones: the political, economic, consular, and administrative. Because I have an MBA degree in computer science, I was in administration. That means that I ran embassies and consulates around the world. But I did, then USIS, the United States Information Service, became another cone. The public diplomacy became another cone in about the year 2000. So I did a tour as the cultural affairs officer in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. And I had a lot of experience outside of my cone of administration. Primarily, I was administering. That means personnel, finance, general services. There was some security work to make sure that the embassies were running properly as an administrator. But I got into political, I got into public diplomacy, and I got into, especially in the military. I was fortunate to earn a second master's degree in strategic studies at the Air War College in Montgomery, Alabama. And after that, I taught at the U.S. Army Command and General Staff College in Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. I taught a course called The Diplomatic Instrument of Power. So I think people say, well, what's your favorite place? And I always say, wherever I'm standing or sitting at the time is my favorite place. But the most interesting place was Ashgabat, Turkmenistan. When the Soviet Union fell apart, it fell into 15 different pieces. And James Baker was the Secretary of State at the time. He made the decision to open an embassy in every one of the new the new republics, the new states that occurred from the Soviet Union. So they were asking Foreign Service officers to volunteer to do this. And I said to my wife, do you think we should do this? And I thought she was going to say, are you crazy? And she said, yes, let's do it. And I said, are you crazy? And we did it. I spent a year studying Russian at the Foreign Service Institute, and then I went to Ashgabat, Turkmenistan, in Central Asia, and helped to build the U.S. Embassy there. When I arrived, there was no embassy. When I left, there was a U.S. Embassy and a housing compound 9 kilometers away.
Wow. So you've definitely worked in many respects of government, not your typical candidate. That's really.
I wasn't the bureaucrat who just sat behind a desk, although I did have a desk and I did sit behind it. But there was a lot of other activity going on. And I got to see the world from a unique perspective. I felt that I was representing the best of America while I was overseas, and then I came home and discovered the worst of America and the corruption that's going on in our government. So this is part of why I'm running for Congress. I'm in the 1st District of California. I'm running for the office of the U.S. Representative in the 1st Congressional District of California. But the incumbent is a Republican, and there are 6 challengers. I'm one of 6 challengers, but of those challengers, I believe I'm the most experienced, the most progressive as well, because I'm in the Green Party. I'm not running as a Democrat or a Republican.
Right, and just I know I've said this every show with my California candidates, but California is very unique. They take the top 2 people who get the most votes. They could both be Democrats. They could be a Green and a Republican. It doesn't matter. They just take the top 2 candidates with the most votes. And the awesome thing about your area is 10 out of 11 districts voted for Bernie.
Yes, isn't that great?
It's a progressive area.
It's wonderful because 50,000 people voted for Bernie Sanders. There's 11 counties in this district, okay, 11. He won 10 of the 11. He got about not quite 50,000 votes. I was one of those 50,000. And he beat Hillary Clinton by about 5,000 votes. That means there's 50,000 people in this district who are not represented in Congress. So I waited thinking, well, surely somebody's going to come forward and do this job. And when nobody did, I thought, if I don't do it, nobody's going to. So that's why I'm running.
Absolutely. And, something that stood out to me immediately when I looked at your website is you said, I stand with Greens and I stand with burners. And there is a huge divide between Bernie supporters and Greens. A lot of us have friends of both and we don't care because we want the same thing. But there's a huge divide, and that's very important when you see Green candidates who say, I embrace everyone who wants the same things. So I think that's awesome.
When I get to Congress, the first thing I'm going to do is join the Congressional Progressive Caucus. That caucus works with the Bernie Sanders office in the Senate. The object of that is to push the legislation that Bernie has been working on through the Congress. It's the very first thing I'll do. The second thing I'll do is to join the bipartisan Food as Medicine Working Group. It actually exists. It's bipartisan. Now, when I join it, it'll be tripartisan. And it talks about food, which is agriculture, and medicine, which is healthcare, to make our food healthy again, and make our land, bring our soil back, make the food nutritious and delicious again. And the third thing I'll do is start the tripartisan Nature as Medicine Working Group, because my part of California in the north is blessed with a tremendous amount of natural resources, and we want to save those resources. We want to protect the resources, protect the water, protect the land, bring the soil back, and have ecotourism so that people can come to this part of the world and get healed by the healing power of nature without trashing it, because tourism often brings with it, as you probably know, some sort of devastation in its wake.
Sure. Absolutely. Josh said that you guys, your district is very rural.
Very rural, yes. That's why we have a right-wing Republican incumbent. There's a great deal of tension between the rural and the urban. The people here look upon the Democrats as being an urban party. So I don't think Democrats have a chance to win. We have 4 Democrats in this race. 3 of them are very qualified women, but they're very young. They're not experienced like I am. And they're going to split the Democratic vote in 4 parts, allowing the Green to jump over.
That's a really good point. That's why the way California has it set up, that can be really advantageous for someone like you running a third party.
Exactly. As a rule, it's not advantageous. As a rule, it keeps the third parties out. People's minds are so trapped into thinking that we have a duopoly. Either you're a Democrat or a Republican. But when I'm campaigning and talking to people, I ask them first, are you a voter? And if they're a voter, I say, I'm running for Congress and I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a conservative. I'm not a liberal. I'm not an ideologue. And I'm not an extremist. I'm just a human being who wants to leave the world a little bit better than he found it. So people, when they hear that, they go, not a Democrat, not a Republican, how can that be? You know? And then I start to explain to them about the Green Plan.
Absolutely. And this year, California is doing something new. They are actually letting California residents vote cross parties. You don't have to be agreeing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's a very important point, Troy. That people, because in 2016 you had to be registered either Democrat or no party preference in order to vote for Bernie Sanders. Now that was true in the presidential primaries, and it will be true. Those are called closed primaries. But this one is an open primary. So by being open means any registered voter can vote for any candidate. So that we have 7 candidates, 2 Republicans, 4 Democrats, and 1 Green. I'm the Green. So anybody can vote for anyone, any registered voter can vote for any one of those 7 candidates. So what I'm saying to people is, I am the third party candidate who wants to come in second on June 5th and first on November 6th.
Yeah, I'm in Pennsylvania, so we have closed primaries regardless of everything. So it's very frustrating because you have to change your party within 30 days. 30 days out minimum. So it's like if you want to vote for someone I'm a registered independent. So if I happen to want to vote for a Dem or a Green, I have to change it at least 30 days in advance. And then the day after I vote, change back. Yeah. So
in our closed primary in California, you're actually then you vote any primary.
Yeah, and you guys have paper ballots as well. We don't, and I think that helps with all the cheating we witnessed. If you have paper ballots, what do you think about ranked choice voting? I know a lot of Greens support that.
Yeah, I support ranked choice voting because it gives a better picture of what the populace wants. Joy, Article 21, Part C of the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights says, the will of the people shall be the basis of the authority of government. That will shall be expressed in periodic and genuine elections by secret ballot or other free voting procedures. So this is enshrined in the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights. You have to have periodic and genuine elections. So that in order to do that, to measure the will of the people, the ranked choice voting is a better measure because it brings you more toward the center of what people want rather than the far extremes. And it decreases polarization. And it also makes people think a little bit, really examine all the candidates and really, say, what do I want? What do I really want? And what is going to represent me? I think it's a good idea. It may take a little bit of time for it to catch on, but I think ultimately people will catch on to that.
Maine passed it, and we'll see. I believe it's June that they vote. So we'll see how, maybe if it does work out to be advantageous, hopefully we'll use it as a precedent and start bringing it to other states. On your platform, you have the most important thing, without question, which is getting money out of politics.
Absolutely. That is I fully agree. I've been in this thing now since January, campaigning, and I think that getting money out of politics is essential because everything else stems from that. Politics now today in America is a business. People are going into a business. You should see my email box is full of professional marketers who are trying to sell me all kinds of things about robocalls and mailings, and now we have social media and all this different ways of reaching people. It's a very fractured advertising market out there. But I can see it's a business. They don't really care who wins. It doesn't matter about good government. What matters is that they get the money to these polling things and the marketing.
Absolutely. So what was your deciding factor on did you decide before, like immediately when you got in the race, there was no way you were taking money, or what was the deciding factor?
The deciding factor was that my values and interests were not being represented by anybody. And I knew that there were 50,000 people out there who voted for Bernie who felt basically like I do. So the Green Party doesn't accept corporate money. And that to me is a no-brainer. We've got to we have to have campaign reform, and we have to move toward all the candidates being out there on their merits, not on how much money they can raise. For example, Chico News and Review gave a good article on the 7 candidates who were running for this office. Then in their endorsement, you know what factor they used was who raised the most money. That's all they care about, is who raised the most money. To me, that's not an indication of who's going to govern best and who's going to represent me best. But they're using that as a margin, as a metric for determining who is the most popular and who has the best chance of winning. People approach this strategically. I'm bringing a more spiritual approach to this. I'm saying vote your conscience. And even Robert Reich doesn't want to hear about that. You know, he did a video on this. He said, don't vote your conscience. What a bunch of crap that is. Don't vote your conscience. Vote your conscience. When people vote their conscience, I win. I win no matter what. I'm talking about the win-win game. I'm not talking about a win-lose game. Elections, as they're set up, are win-lose games. One person wins, some people lose, many people lose. But really, it's the win-win game that we're all striving for and that we all yearn for. The economist Charles Eisenstein wrote a book called "The More Beautiful World Our Hearts Know Is Possible." And every time I tell people that, they just light up. I said, this is what we're working for. And that's a win-win game. I studied with Buckminster Fuller in 1971 at the University of Detroit. Do you know who Bucky is? Bucky Fuller? He's one of our great scientists.
Really familiar.
He invented the geodesic dome, Bucky Fuller. And he was a great mathematician, a great geometrician. And he says, we can transform weaponry into livingry through comprehensive scientific design. There's enough to go around. He said politics is based on the idea that there's not enough to go around. We'll have to fight for a shrinking pie. It's not true. There's enough to go around. This planet can support many more people than it's got, as long as we spread out and live according to what Gandhi said. Gandhi said, there's enough for everybody's need, but there's not enough for everybody's greed.
Yeah, right on. Absolutely. Do you think that if people voted their conscience, we'd have President Bernie?
I do. Because what is your conscience? Your conscience tells you what's right and wrong. People have to, in order to vote your conscience, you must get in touch with your conscience. And the more people who get in touch with their conscience, the better we'll be. That's my victory. I mean, my candidacy, of course I want to win. I'm very serious about winning. To me, the contest between me and the current Republican incumbent is a contest between the 20th century and the 21st century. In the 20th century, the political motivators were fear and greed. In the 21st century, the political motivators are compassion and courage. And I'm a 21st century candidate, politician. I want to change the concept of what is a politician. In ancient Greece, a politician was someone you looked up to, like a Mahatma, a great soul. And of course, as you know, over time, to say that someone is a politician is almost what would you call it, a derogatory term. You know, to say, oh, he's a politician means he lies, he cheats, he just tells you what you want, to make you believe things that aren't true. We have to get that back. We have to change the word to politicians. The politicians have to have honor, dignity, courage, and compassion. And that's what Bernie had. That's what we all responded to. And that's what I want to see happen. I'll tell you, Joy, one thing that happened, the main thing I've learned from this, I've learned a lot about myself, I've learned a lot about my country, about my district, my city, the people I live with. The main thing I learned about myself is that I can stand in front of an audience and proclaim myself to be a wise elder. And I'm saying to the wise elders, this is a problem in our country. The wise elders are not standing forth and standing into their power, stepping into their power to guide the younger people. And the younger people are yearning for that. And to the younger people, we need younger people to get involved in politics. I understand why they don't. I get it, why they don't. But you know, in order to build a garden, you have to get your hands dirty in the dirt. How are you going to make a garden? How are you going to make them grow? So I'm saying, get your hands dirty with politics and get involved. So when the wise elders and the woke youngers work together, nothing can stop them.
Absolutely. I'd like to think of like Bernie, for instance, as more of a statesman. He's just not a politician. Yeah. So, but I do agree that if we can get that word back without those negative connotations, that would be a really good step in the right direction. On your platform, you also talk about public banking. This is something I see a lot of Greens talk about. Can you discuss why that would be a better way to go?
Well, the banking system takes advantage of people to a great extent. Other countries are doing it. Many countries have public banks connected with their post offices. There's one of the I forget her name. One of the maybe it's I'm not going to try to say it because I don't want to be wrong. There is a bill going forward to establish a public. We have to just in the same way we're taking back the word politician. We have to take back the banks from those who are abusing it. Now, when other countries do something and make it successful, that's what the military calls proof of principle. The military does not go ahead and start new programs without testing them in a small way, in a small little test case. So we have many of Bernie Sanders' ideas are not pie in the sky ideas. They've been tested in other countries, and we know that they do work. Of course, you have to want them to succeed. If there's people who want to sabotage them, they can. But if the people of the country want the programs that will serve the people, Medicare for all, education for all, public banking, the sorts of things that serve the people, and what is Medicare for all? But taking the insurance companies out of this, taking a layer of profit and bureaucracy out of the delivery of health care. In ancient China, the doctors were paid when you were healthy, and they stopped paying them when you got sick. That's basically what Medicare for all would be. You pay the doctors all the time to keep people healthy, and then we don't have to have so much illness. Right now, the incentive for big pharma is to have people sick. And it's not in their interest to cure cancer. It's not in their interest to have inexpensive, natural medical cures for simple ailments. It's in their interest to have complicated, expensive, long-term procedures that drag out illness. I see you're nodding your head, so you understand what I'm saying.
Oh, totally. That's a really good point. Yeah, that's definitely a good point. Big pharma is something that whether it's separated from Medicare for all in different legislation, it needs to be taken care of so badly. And, Bernie, he brought that bill, to the floor, and even Democrats voted it down, like people like Cory Booker, who gets money from Big Pharma.
Big Pharma, this is money in. Yeah. That brings us all the way back in a big circle, all the way back to money in politics.
Absolutely.
So I don't have a lot of money, but I have a lot of wonderful people working with me, and I have a lot of faith that every day when I wake up, more people wake up than went to sleep the night before. My army is growing of woke people, and they get me, and I'm enjoying it.
Are you an animal lover? I kind of feel like you would be.
I'm a lover. I'm just a lover. Uh, I was married for 31 wonderful years to the most wonderful woman in the world. She passed away in 2002. I still feel very close to her. And I've got a daughter and a granddaughter. My granddaughter's 3 years old. I want to leave this planet better than I found it for my granddaughter. Actually, for the 7th generation. I talk about stewardship. For the 7th, I want clean air, clean water, right human relations, stewardship of planet Earth, and consideration for the 7th generation. Those are the principles that I would put forth in government. I'm very much wedded. I've studied the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It consists of a preamble and 31 articles. And that's the basis upon which government should be based. In addition to the Iroquois Confederacy's idea that we should always take into consideration the 7th generation.
Absolutely. I see some people definitely agreeing with you in the chat too, so that's always good. You do talk, speaking of your grandchild, you do also talk about childcare and having that affordable. Is your kids and grandkids, is that something that made you want to put that on your platform?
Well, yes and no. I mean, of course, I'm influenced by my personal situation, but you don't have to have grandchildren to understand that the planet doesn't go on unless we work as stewards of this planet. We have to work with the animals, plants, and mineral kingdom. We're all in this together. The human beings should be the stewards of the planet, but we're acting like alien. Some of us are acting like alien invaders. So I want to see the stewardship step forward. There's actually 10 principles in the Green Party, 10 values, which I firmly support. The first 4 are called the pillars. And the very first one is ecological wisdom. The second one is social justice. The third is grassroots democracy. And the fourth is nonviolence. So if you just take the pillars of the Green Party and you don't go on to the other ones, that's quite enough. And when I think of ecological wisdom, I think of indigenous wisdom, solving some of the problems. I don't know about Pennsylvania, but we in California suffer from drought and forest fires. Well, the indigenous people had ways of dealing with that. And we want to go back and have land use, water use, and fire prevention according to the indigenous principles. There's a big controversy here about dams, raising the height of dams and building dams. That's a 19th century technology for a 21st century problem. But I think if we go back to the indigenous solutions, we'll be able to store water and capture water, store it in such a way that it's in line with the ecological principles that we know and love.
I was actually going to draw the same comparison. The things you were saying did remind me of Native American culture. What was your thought when you saw everything going down at DAPL? How did that affect you?
I'm sorry, down where?
At DAPL, Dakota Access Pipeline.
Oh yeah, you're talking about Standing Rock.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I stand with Standing Rock from the beginning. I know many people who actually went there physically and stood on the front lines. But that's the beginning. That's the beginning of all of us are water protectors. We have to be Joy, our bodies are made up of mostly water. So how could you not be a water protector? To me, once again, this is what I call a no-brainer. We're made of water. So water is life. So we have to protect it. And the people at Standing Rock, what I like about this is that they brought spiritual principles into a political realm. And that's how I differ from some Greens even. I've had people who have called themselves Greens who don't agree with the fact that I take a spiritual approach to all of these problems. But that I just chalk that up to the fact that I'm an elder. And the longer you live, the more you see how things are interconnected. I mean, anybody can be an elder by just not dying, but a wise elder is someone who learns from their life experiences and grows from them and passes them on to the next generation. So I'm calling the wise elders to step forward. Like Bernie is a wise elder. And who responds to that? The kids who are yearning for the wise elders to step into their power and lead us into the 21st century.
Yeah, absolutely. You're so right. I see one of our followers, Ray, he said he wishes he was in California so he could vote for you.
Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Ray. Send your prayers my way. I say one prayer equals 10,000 votes. One vote equals 10,000 prayers.
Oh, that's awesome. Even as a heathen, I can sense your spirituality and I still find it beautiful. There's nature, it's nature. To me, you're like an old soul and you're a hippie. There's nothing wrong with that. That's one of my litmus tests. I won't vote for anyone unless they have a good heart and they have good intention.
Right, good for you. The term that I would use, Barbara Marx Hubbard calls herself a conscious evolutionary. I'm a grandfather, I'm a planetary citizen, I'm a poet, I'm a conscious evolutionary, I'm a conscious activist or a sacred activist. I'm a visionary leader, I'm a bridge between the empire and Earth community. And I'm 70 years young and I'm youthing, not aging.
Absolutely. You're more active than many people I know. What are some of your favorite some of your favorite things to protest or march for, or what goes on in your district?
When I was younger, we had the war in Vietnam and we protested and marched about that. But I go inward. I say inner peace starts from within. So we meditate at the Green Party headquarters in Mount Shasta. You have to understand, I'm in Mount Shasta, California, one of the great sacred sites of the world, okay? We meditate in the Green Party headquarters from 9 to 10 every day except Sunday. Every day from 9 to 10, there's a silent meditation. We go inside to create the peace from within. Peace will not come from outside. It will only come from within. And we have to learn how to breathe correctly and how to sit correctly, how to be quiet with ourselves, how to listen to others. Listening is a very important. People say, I want to talk to that person. No. We don't talk. We listen to each other. And then that connection comes. Our hearts connect through what I call green healing light that connects our hearts. I need 33,333 votes to win a smashing victory on June 5th. So I visualize in my 11 counties, there's 33,333 people. And I visualize their hearts all connected by green healing light, forming a flower of life mandala. And when I meditate on that, and I'm sending out this energy to the world, and whoever's ready to pick it up, picks it up. So if you don't have money for television advertising, you can do telepathy.
You gave me goosebumps. I wish I was in California too. This stinks. I keep interviewing all these cool people from California.
And on top of that, it's the first congressional district. We're number one. Yeah,
absolutely. As far as this weekend and the next 3 days, really, what are things that you still need for those watching? Do you need canvassers? Do you need phone bankers? What are you still in need of?
I think I need prayers. I want good thoughts. I want people to visualize 33,333 people, all connected by green healing light, voting for me on June 5th. If they haven't already voted. Now, our mail-in ballot has already started. So when I canvass people, I tell them who I am, and they say, "Oh, I've already voted for you." It's great to hear that. And one company tried to sell me robocalls. I hate robocalls. What is the golden rule? I wouldn't inflict them on other people if I don't like them myself. knocking on doors and disturbing people, I wouldn't vote for the person who disturbs me. With these mailers that cost so much money, you may as well just take them and throw them all into the garbage directly, because that's what people do with them. You get them, you look at them, and you throw them in the garbage. Okay, it gives you some name recognition. But the main thing is people need to know I exist. They need to know that there's a choice. You don't have to vote red or blue. You don't have to just vote in one way. That there's a green option out there. And that Lewis Elbinger is there, and that he's going to look after everybody, not just a few people.
I can sense that. Absolutely. If you want to leave our viewers with something to take away from this, and also to hopefully, give you a few dollars for donations, or, to recommend you.
There's a web. So let's tell people how, maybe I should have had a sign. I don't have it written now. It's LewisElbingerForCongress.com. And my name is spelled Lewis. That's the British spelling, not the French spelling. So it's Lewis, ELBINGER, FOR, Congress.com. And on that, in there, they can click a button, and if they have abundant resources, they can share it with me. And I'm going to use it to do things like yard signs and whatever that my council of elders considers to be a wise use of these resources. But more important, I think the last thing I want to tell people is this. If you vote Republican or Democrat, you can make a point. But if you vote Green, you can make history. Because there's never been a Green congressperson yet. And we want that to happen. And California is the experimental place where such a thing can happen. Since the Democratic vote is going to be split between 4 different people, there's really a chance that my candidacy can win. And we're pushing that, we're talking about it, we're explaining to people. And the only limitation I face is that people just don't know the choice exists. So that's the only problem I've got. Getting the word out there, getting the name out there. It's not about my ego. It's about the Bernie Sanders movement. It's not even about Bernie. It's about the Bernie Sanders movement. So that's what I would say to people.
Absolutely. And we all have that duty. I mean, our viewers, they know, I talk about it all the time. We are responsible for who goes out and votes. Facebook, we have access to thousands of people. It is our job, essentially, to promote candidates we like. That's why I do this. I live in Pennsylvania. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
well, I have to tell you, I just thought of this. I have some differences with Bernie, 2 differences, not major, but serious differences. I'm not a socialist. I think we're in a post-ideology age. I think ideology is for the 20th century. All the isms cause schisms. And so I don't think I'm not left or right. The Greens in Germany say we're not left or right, we're forward. So I'm not a liberal, I'm not a conservative. I won't be put in boxes by people. If there's a good idea, I'll take it. The only ism I would possibly accept is pragmatism, which is a very American concept. The other thing is, I say, and this annoys some people on the left, I say drop the R in revolution. Make it evolution. You drop the R. And if I wanted to see, I wrote this many times. If I could have sat down with Bernie Sanders, I would say, Bernie, drop the R. We don't need it. Revolution means going around in circles. We're already doing that. So who needs revolution? But if you drop the R, you get evolution. That's spiraling upward. And that's the sort of activity that everybody can relate to. Plus, in history, revolutions have been bloody and terrible and horrible. So how do you go to voters and say, hey, let's have a revolution? People might say, well, I'll pass on that. But if you say evolution, some people will say, oh, okay, that's what we need to do. We need to evolve, and we need to include. Buckminster Fuller said, to love is to include. So we have to be very inclusive. We have to talk to the Trumpsters. And especially in my district, I have to talk to lots of what I call Dwight Eisenhower Republicans, who are repelled by the Donald Trump Republicans. These people are like oil and water. And I want to let people know that I'm comfortable with Dwight Eisenhower Republicanism. It was Dwight Eisenhower who warned us against the military-industrial complex. And when Dwight Eisenhower was president, they taxed the rich people at 95%. So and Dwight Eisenhower was a firm supporter of Social Security rather than trying to tear it down. Social Security is a great thing. When I talk to people about Social Security, I said, you only need to know 2 words: inviolable firewall. I will not allow anything to touch Social Security. And that's a big issue in my district. So once again, drop the R in revolution and drop the ideology, move into the 21st century. We are 18 years into the 21st century. Let's act like it. That's how
right on. Absolutely. Someone actually, Jeff Pearson, a viewer, he wants to know if you're endorsing any other California candidates. Do you have anyone else that you're endorsing or supporting or planning on voting for on Tuesday?
Yeah, I do. Of course, Josh Jones for governor, because I'm in the Green Party. I endorse the Green Party for the most part. But where does Jeff live? It really depends, because
he is asking if you'd like David Hildebrand, Allison Hartson, or Allison Hartson over Dianne Feinstein.
Oh, absolutely anything over Dianne Feinstein.
I know. I would sure as hell hope so.
I've been torn between the Peace and Freedom candidate John Thompson Parker and David Hildebrand. I still haven't voted yet, and I'm still a little bit torn. I have very good friends. My friend Stephen Breedlove and Chico talked to both of them at length, and he's sort of come down in favor of Parker. And my friend Joshua Brown in Reading also goes for Parker. But I have problems with the Peace and Freedom because they didn't endorse my candidacy because I said drop the R in revolution. So that's a little bit of a problem I have with those people. But I think either Hildebrand or Parker are probably okay. And and once again, vote your conscience, go into yourself, go into your heart, and see what your heart tells you. And when people do that, they become more whole. It's a more holistic approach to politics.
Yes, I have endorsed. Real Progressives doesn't endorse, but I personally have endorsed 2 California candidates, Stephen Jaffe and Gail McLaughlin.
Gail McLaughlin for sure, and she's not a party preference. She's NPP. We call that NPP in California, no party preference. Yes, Gail McLaughlin is an easy one. That everybody loves her. And I hope she's going to win.
I don't know. I've had her twice, and people love her, so I really think she can do it. I do.
She's really loved, yeah.
Yeah. You guys your state has a lot of great people. We're going to be watching and hoping all day Tuesday, looking out for all of you guys.
Yeah, very exciting. Of course, we won't know until after the polls close.
Right. Yeah. Right.
There's a lot of
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for joining us. I know it was kind of like a last minute and everything like that, but you're an amazing person. I really wish you the best. I'm looking forward to seeing the results on Tuesday, and just thank you so much. You're awesome.
Thank you for what you're doing. We're united. Bernie unites us across there you are in Pennsylvania. Here I am in California, but we're united all across this country by the idealism and the wisdom of the elders and the wokeness of the youngers working together. We can take this country and turn it around and make it what it should be, what Charles Eisenstein calls the more beautiful world our hearts know is possible. Thank you. Absolutely.
Thank you guys for watching. I have another show in about 10 minutes. Another Green California candidate, Danielle St. John. A lot of you guys probably know her. She's been in the Bernie movement for almost as long as I have. So, but she's coming on in a few minutes. So hopefully you'll join me back. Thanks again for watching as always. And once more, thank you so much, Lewis. Best of luck.
Thank you, Joy.
Absolutely.